All right, we're back and ready to go with today's orientation to CCAP, the first in a series of webinars to introduce you and kind of help you along this journey towards becoming a certified community action professional. Our speaker today is Mr. Jim Lopresti, who has been with the partnership for quite some time and has been the CCAP administrator since the very beginning. So with no further ado, Jim, take it away.
Thank you very much, Cashin, and welcome everyone to the first in our series of 4 CCAP Wednesday webinars. We hope we'll be able to welcome you to the following ones. I'll tell you a little bit more about them at the end of this webinar presentation. As Cashin mentions, I am the administrator of the CCAP program on behalf of the Certification Commission. Also with us today is Sharita Newman at the Partnership Office, who has administrative responsibility for the partnership, particularly to manage the enrollment process. At least that's part of what Sharita will be doing. For those of you who, after this webinar, choose to actually enroll and become candidates, that will be managed through the Partnership Office, and Sharita will be your contact. So let's take a look today, actually, in this first webinar, basically at an orientation to what CCAP is about. We will not get into a lot of detail into the various components of the CCAP program. We will get much more detail in coming months as we look at the different components of the CCAP in depth in the candidacy process. CCAP is the only national peer-review-based recognition of community action managers and leaders. And from the beginning, it was developed by community action leaders in the field and remains a professional peer-based program. It was generated as such, developed as such, maintained and overseen as such. Oversight is provided by the Certification Commission, which is appointed by the Partnership Board Chair. On this next slide, you see the names of the 10 commissioners who currently oversee the certification process, chaired by Thomas Tenorio, the recent past president of the, chair of the Partnership Board. The program is based on 2 pillars, if you will. The first of those pillars is the Community Action Body of Knowledge Outline. The Body of Knowledge Outline is a 5-section list of the knowledge and skills which community action managers and leaders need in order to function in a position of leadership in their community and agency. This was a body of knowledge outline developed over a couple of years of work in the beginning of the development of CCAP and has been revised. In fact, a recent revision just happened this August to constantly make sure that it is up to date. Up to date in describing what are the expected areas of knowledge and skills for community actions, provides the backbone for the assessment process that Community Action's CCAP program is about. These areas of competency, there are 5 of them. The first of them is the history of community action movement. It is expected that CCAP candidates would understand what is the history, the background that community action has evolved from. The second is vision and values of community action. What is it that propels the movement forward? What is it that we espouse in our missions? And then traditional community action management skills. What are the traditional way of looking at how someone would manage a nonprofit, public or private organization that cares for the needs in community action? The fourth is leadership skills, ways in which the vision and values and the ethics of community action actually become real in any setting through leadership. And then the 5th area of the body of knowledge outline is current theories about the causes of poverty and accepted strategies to address them. it's very important to be aware of this body of knowledge outline, and it is accessible on the Community Action Partnership's website because the whole of the program actually is based, the whole assessment that CCAP is about is based on this body of knowledge outline. The second pillar of CCAP is the Community Action Code of Ethics. The Community Action Code of Ethics is that standard for professional behavior that's expected to guide the decisions that you make as a community action leader. All candidates sign an agreement to abide by the code. That is important. The Commission does take the code quite seriously. You are expected to know what's in the code, and the Community Action Commission enforces it. Let's move to the next slide. That body of knowledge outline that I just briefly described to you, and the Code of Ethics, and every other CCAP document and instruction that you will need are available for download at the Partnership's website. It is in the process of being refined, and we hope being made easier for you in the near future. But all of the documents that you will need can be found on the website. All right. There's the website address, communityactionpartnership.com. So why think about becoming a CCAP? Some of the things that we have learned over the years about what becoming a CCAP has meant to individuals who are CCAPs and to community action in general. CCAP does transmit the professional standards for leadership and community action, fitting into that 5-section body of knowledge outline and our Code of Ethics. It validates the achievements of community action managers and leaders. It provides to you then, if you become a CCAP, the appropriate visibility and recognition that you deserve for your professional status. We have learned that it does improve opportunities for professional advancement. It's more and more becoming the case that agencies that look for quality management, leadership positions to be filled often will say CCAP preferred, especially on the executive director or CEO level. One thing we have learned, especially from those persons who've been CCAP candidates, studying and looking at the process together, and then have become part of a management team that is CCAPs, is that that sense of common mission develops in a stronger way in the agencies that have a number of CCAPs on their team. It breaks down the silo mentality and has individuals really understand what it is that we hold corporately. And the process of becoming, therefore a process of becoming a CCAP transmits these values, knowledge, and skills to a new generation of managers and leaders. We are watching that happen. So, is it for you? Let's get some more details. If you currently are an emerging manager or leader in the profession of community action, if you are currently employed full-time in a community action agency, a delegate agency, or sub-grantee, a CSBG eligible entity, or state CSBG office, or state or regional association, then you are, that's the first point of eligibility. One does need to be fully employed in an appropriate setting. And if you have served for at least 2 full years, that is a full 24 months, in a position that is considered executive management. And let's take a look at what executive management means from the perspective of where the Commission operationalizes that. If you can say yes to any 3 of the following 5 categories, then that means you qualify in your position. That is, your position includes authority beyond the mere responsibility to carry out others' orders. You have discretion. Second, you supervise at least 1 other employee. 3, your position includes the responsibility to report directly to the board or to a board committee or the CEO. 4th, if your position includes the responsibility to administer a budget and the accountability that goes with that. And 5th, if you're a member of the executive team. If you can say yes to any 3 of those 5, and for a position that has been an executive management position for a full 24 months, then you're qualified to become a candidate. I want to note that that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just the current position that you need to be in for 2 full years. If you've had 2 positions, that you can say 3 of those 5 descriptors are appropriate for you, and those 2 positions are add up to 24 months. That still counts. But that is to say, then, you need to have been in an executive management position, as is operationalized in this description, for a full 24 months to become a candidate. And if you can say that you're committed to the vision and values of community action, committed to maintaining high ethical standards of professional conduct, if you're willing to learn more about the history, vision, and values of community action, if you feel that there is that need for you to demonstrate competence in the CCAP exam, we'll talk briefly about that in a few moments, and the principles of good management and the best practices of 21st century leadership. Now, if you look carefully, you can see implied in all of that is knowledge of the body of knowledge outline, including the current theories about poverty in America. If you have that kind of an executive management position and can say that these following statements are true about you, then CCAP might be right for you. I'm going to pause here during this brief introduction to see if there are any initial questions. At various points, I will pause the presentation to look in the Q&A panel. I don't see any questions, but please feel free at any time, and to those questions, I will be looking at them. That's a general introduction to why CCAP, what's it based on, and who potentially might qualify to become a CCAP candidate. Now let's talk about what certification, how certification happens, what goes on for someone to be certified. Understand that it is based on a point system, and that when someone enrolls to be a candidate, you have a maximum of 3 years to accumulate the required points in order to become certified as a community action professional. It was expected from the first year when CCAP was established, that some candidates might be able, in their circumstances, to complete the process in 1 year, and approximately 50, maybe a little bit higher than 50% of candidates will do that, complete that in the first year, but one does not have to. And those points are objective measures of 3 things. First is the kinds of experience a candidate has had in community action, and that is compiled in what's called a candidate data form, or a CDF, which we will look at in an overview way in a few moments, and in more depth in a subsequent webinar. The second thing that is measured or assessed is a candidate's skill in doing the work of community action, which is an executive skills portfolio, or known as the ESP. And again, there will be another webinar to look in more detail after our cursory look at it. And then the third measurement is of knowledge about community action, and that is in the annual certification examination. Now let's take a look, at least in a preliminary way, to each of those assessment activities that are the core of the certification program, overseen by the Certification Commission. The first is to measure experience. A candidate submits a candidate data form, or a CDF. That CDF is a detailed record of your experience, education, and involvement in community action. You might say it's a structured resume form that you complete. It is evaluated and scored and earns up to a total of 500 points. Now, right now, saying 500 points is basically meaningless until you see how the system calculates points, but hold on to that. We will come back to that. So one can accumulate up to 500 points in a candidate data form. So obviously, the longer someone has been in community action and the more one has been active, then the better the score. It is due the third Wednesday of January each year. Let me explain why it's due the third Wednesday. On the third Wednesday of January, it is no longer possible to record or to gain points on your candidate data form for consideration for completing the process in that calendar year. That means that a candidate data form, once it's submitted by that third Wednesday of January, you can't add to it for that year. But if you don't qualify, you can add it for by January, the third Wednesday of January, for the next year to qualify in the next year, or the third year if you don't qualify in the second year. Okay? The candidate data form has categories. The first is employment, your employment in community action in a managerial or executive management position, the education and training experiences in your personal history, your involvement in national, regional, state, and local activities of doing the work of community action, your involvement in publishing or training and association management outside of community action. In each of these, a candidate is not asked to prove what they put into the candidate data form. You have signed the code of ethics when you become a candidate, so it is presumed you abide by those code of ethics. In only very few instances are you required to give samples, and that's basically on things that you've published. So you're not expected to add anything to your candidate data form that prove what your entries are. Let's take a look just for a second at one of those categories, which is years of experience in management as an executive level. So you'll see, first of all, that you can enter into that form, you'll see right here, the number of points that is available in that category. But also, you can see that there's a maximum allowed number of points. So while that category allows you 15 points for each, up to 15 points for each year that you've been involved in community action, once you've been involved for 10 years and get 150 points, you cannot add any more points. That is true of every one of the categories in the candidate data form. But this is looking just at the three sections in experience that are listed in the candidate data form. Your years of management or executive staff in an agency or an association, your years in full-time management in an organization other than a community action. Let's say you were, for example, a manager of a local business or something. If it was a full-time management position, then that counts. Okay? But again, for a certain number of points per year, and when you get to the maximum number of points, you cannot add any more. That's about the candidate data form. The next measurement is about the executive skills portfolio. I'm watching your Q&A box. I don't see any questions yet concerning the candidate data form. So I'm going to move on to the second assessment activity that measures skills, and that assessment activity is the executive skills portfolio. The portfolio is a sample of work showing how you have applied the competencies that are listed in the body of knowledge in your work setting. And in fact, you are asked to cross-reference in your portfolio in how you present it to the body of knowledge outline, how it manifests certain skills related to that body of knowledge outline. So that sample of work shows how you've applied that body of knowledge outline into your work setting. It's structured in a way you're given guidance for that on the partnership's website, where you will find the ESP, or Executive Skills Portfolio guidelines. It gives you details about how you structure that. We advise candidates, though, to be thinking right away, if you're going to become a candidate, what kind of work are you doing in your setting you think really can show your skills at being a professional in community action? Recalling that being a professional in community action means ways in which those 5 components of the body of knowledge outline show up in the work you do. Okay? That executive skills portfolio, so that should be thought about right away. That portfolio is evaluated and scored, and it, like the candidate data form, a candidate has the capacity to receive up to 500 points on the executive skills portfolio. It is due on the 3rd Wednesday of February each year. Again, the same principle. There is no other option to present an executive skills portfolio after that for qualification in that calendar year. It is possible to revise an executive skills portfolio if a number of points were insufficient. We'll talk about what it means to have sufficient number of points in a moment, but that can be done again in the subsequent year or in the 3rd year. Okay, we have a question. I'm looking in the Q&A box, wondering about internship points, someone said. Internship points, a person asked, again, that goes back to if you served in an intern position in a community action agency or an association, you get a certain number of points, up to a maximum of 18 points for the time in which you were an intern in any kind of position, whether you were a management intern, an intern in one of the programs in the agency as part of your schooling. That's what is meant. I hope I answered that question, but if not, please get back to the Q&A box to finish it. Let's take a look at an executive skill portfolio, one other item in a little more detail, and that is the essays that accompany the portfolio that you've developed. Because not only is the executive skills portfolio an opportunity for a candidate to show the work that they have done, but it is an opportunity for the candidate to reflect on the work that they've done and express certain things in a knowledgeable way. There are 4 essays that are expected to accompany the portfolio. The first essay is concerning traditional management skills, in which you are expected to explain how the work sample shows that you understand and can use traditional management practices in these 4 specific areas: planning, organizing, directing, and evaluating. That goes back to the need to cross-reference in your work sample. If if you're going to answer that question, the evaluators need to see, when you're answering that question, how it relates to your portfolio by your indexing it. The second essay question is on positive leadership skills. Again, another part of the body of knowledge outline. And in that particular essay, the evaluators are looking for your description of how your style of leadership has helped you be a leader in an organization, whatever kind of leadership or leadership management paradigm that you use. How has that style helped you, and how has that style limited your role, or how could it limit your role as a leader in an organization? The point is that the evaluators are not looking for you to demonstrate that you've been the flawless leader, but to demonstrate that you understand leadership and understand the natural limitations that all of us have in our roles. The third essay is to explain how the work sample shows that you understand and have used the vision and values of community action. That particular essay, which is the heaviestly weighted essay in the portfolio, again, one in which you need to cross-reference your response to the body of knowledge outline, is one where you show that the vision and values of community action are manifest in the work that you do. The fourth essay asks you to demonstrate how your sample contributes to your agency's attainment or enhancement of one of the partnership standards of excellence, or how it could or has the capacity to contribute to that standard. It is expected that CCAP candidates then be aware of what is excellence in agency, direction, and activities. So it's expected that the candidates be at least conversant in the standards of excellence that is part of the partnership. Okay. Now I'm going to look at measuring knowledge, which is the examination. But before doing that, I'm going to check in the panel. And I'm going to follow up on that question that was asked about internship, because it actually raises a similar question. That internship could be any time in anyone's lifetime of employment before community action. The answer is yes. And in fact, on the candidate data form, it is not necessarily the case that all the responses in the data form to your background, to your education, or to your experiences have to have happened during the time of your employment in an executive position. We'll get into more detail of that when you look in the candidate data form. But it is a candidate data form for your history, not just for the time of your employment in community action. Okay. And there is the question was asked, are you going to receive copies of this PowerPoint? The answer is yes. This webinar will be recorded, so you'll have the chance to access it again. Let's take a look now at the next section of the assessment program, that is CCAP, and that is the measuring of knowledge. The measurement of knowledge is when the candidate passes the national certification examination. Let's talk a little bit about the CCAP exam and how you get to that point. After you've received a total of at least 700 points on your candidate data form and ESB combined, a total of 700 points. Remember that a candidate data form, you're able to achieve up to 500 points. And the executive skills, you're able to achieve up to 500 points. That means there's a maximum total possible of 1,000 points. When you get to 700 points out of that maximum total possible of 1,000 within 3 years, and at the same time, when you've had a floor minimum of 300 points in each, then you qualify to take the exam. So if your candidate data form is at least 300 points, the executive skills portfolio has eventually accumulated at least 300 points, but the total for both of them is at least 700 points, then you qualify to take the exam. Again, either in the first, second, or third year, you have up to 3 years to complete the process. The exam is given on the second or third Wednesday of June each year. This next year, 2017, it'll be given on the second Wednesday, June 14th. It's given at various sites across the country. Those sites are determined after we know what candidates have qualified, so that we can establish those sites in parts of the country as convenient as we can possibly make it for candidates. It's based, again, like the rest of the program, on the Community Action Body of Knowledge outline. There are questions in the examination that cover each one of the 5 areas of the Body of Knowledge outline. But it's important to recognize that the exam is based not on memorization. It's not an academic exam, it's an experience-based exam. In fact, all the questions that are in an item bank that the exam is drawn from, that are generated by certified community action professionals in the field and tested by CCAPs in the field before they are placed, and it's a very rigorous process, into an item bank of questions. That item bank is drawn upon each year to do a new exam each year. In fact, the process of generating the 2017 exam is happening right now. When that process is completed, a study guide is given on the partnership website. A little about that in just a couple of minutes. The study guide that is sent out each January guides the candidate who qualifies that year to the exam to the specific sources that were used, where the questions for that year's exam come from. And it gives in a lot of detail about where to look to prepare for the examination. The passing score, the examination, is 70% score of the questions on the exam. Now, building a CAP, that's the last of our quick look at the assessment activities that CCAP is based on. Again, we will look in more detail at each of those at appropriate times in early December at the CDF, in January at the ESP, and in April at the exam. But I want to talk with you now more about how to get ready for this and how to enroll. Okay. But before doing that, I'm going to go back to the question box and see if there are any items that we need to address. Someone asked if everything is turned on on time in the upcoming year. Can we take the test in June, or do we have to wait until the following year? No. If you turn everything in on time, that is by the third Wednesday of January and the third Wednesday of February, and if you achieved this passing score, the required minimum, you were notified then that you qualify to take the exam in June that year. That doesn't mean, by the way, that the candidate has to take the exam in June that year. The candidate can defer to the following year if they still have more years to take the exam. We don't advise that because you also have the option to take the exam 3 times. And the examination, while it is very rigorous, people who prepare for the exam pass it. In fact, each year, over 90% of those candidates who qualify to take the CCAP exam do pass it each year, especially those candidates that join study groups. And I'm going to talk about study groups in a few moments. Okay? Let's talk about your building a pathway to becoming a CCAP. There is help, especially for those who might not be ready to become a CCAP candidate. Though some of the things for those who might even be ready that I'm going to be talking about for those who aren't ready might also be appropriate and apply to you. Let's say you have not yet enough points to qualify. You don't think that your candidate data form will give you enough points to make that 300 minimum threshold. In fact, what we suggest if someone is thinking about being a candidate is download the candidate data form from the partnership's website and take a test run. There's enough information that a candidate basically can figure out for yourself if you come close to qualifying. It should probably be pretty clear to you. But let's talk more about that help. Specifically, we suggest that you meet with your executive director to make sure, or whoever is, excuse me, the person who is your supervisor, to determine the level of support that you believe you're going to get from your agency. So will there be support from your agency for the costs for enrollment, which we'll look at in a few moments, for participating in various learning experiences if you feel that they are necessary for you, or for the need for opportunities to expand your horizons or broaden your reach, to be more involved in the work of community action, perhaps expanding the work that you do from your position. Step 2, identify a CCAP mentor who can guide you through each step of the process and coach you in preparing and submitting your documents. If you come from an agency that already has CCAPs, you might go to your own agency or someone in your state if you know the CCAPs. Otherwise, you can go to the partnership's website and look at the list of CCAP mentors, persons who have agreed and who have met specific requirements to serve as mentors for CCAPs. Their contact information is identified on the website. So it's a good idea to connect with a mentor who can help you navigate your way through the process. Again, that list is on the website. Then start your journey towards CCAP. And as you do that, it would be valid. Keep your own file. Record your progress towards it. Download then the Building Your Pathway to CCAP brochure. That also can be accessed on the partnership's website through the CCAP link. That plays out in more detail what I'm just describing now verbally to you. Get a copy of that brochure. Then determine when will you meet that 24-month rule. That's important. Review the code of ethics and say determine that's your behavior that you are going to be measured by. Download, again, as I mentioned before, do a test run of the candidate data form in consultation with your mentor. Take some time to think through it. Participate in the candidate data form webinar that we're going to do if you sign up in November, but don't wait till then to look at the candidate data form. Download it now. Do a test run of it now. Then when you come to the webinar, you'll have some very pointed questions to ask about the candidate data form. And download the body of knowledge outline and think about your strengths and your deficits in understanding the community action history. What are you aware of in our history? As you look at how it describes vision and values, where do you say, I need to know more about that? Or management skills, or leadership skills, or strategies for addressing poverty, even if you don't intend to become a CCAP candidate now. Look at that anyway. because it will broaden your understanding about community action. And then when the time comes to become a candidate, you'll even be better prepared. Sign up for these webinars that are coming up in the future. There are pre-recorded webinars that you might want to go to, archived ones. A lot of that will be repeated in future ones, but at least in the future live ones, you'll have the chance to interact. Download the CCAP bibliography, and to see which of those resources you might want to have to build your own library of your for developing your own knowledge base about community action. You can access those various resources. Some of them are internet-based and some of them are actual printed volumes. And map out training opportunities for yourself that might help you deepen your understanding, where you see a need to build more competence. Consider, for example, the Partnerships Management Training Conference. Consider your own state associations conference. Get the support of your agency to participate in conferences that might be presented by your state association or other organizations that give you better understanding of the works of nonprofits. Consider what you might, right now, consider what you might showcase as an example of your good work in leadership roles in community action through your portfolio. Discuss that with your mentor. Look at your work. Look at what you do. Look at the body of knowledge outline. Dwell on it. Think about it for a while. And as you look at the work you do, let it become visible to you how it manifests your skills in doing the work of community action. And then sign up for a CCAP study group. More and more of them are coming online all the time. We're working with a number of state associations that are establishing study groups. Some of them meet early, when I say early, towards the end of the calendar year to help candidates work on portfolios. Most of them meet in the beginning of the calendar year, looking through the body of knowledge outline when the exam study guide is published in late January. Because then that becomes their way of organizing the study. We've learned something very interesting over the years, that those candidates who participate in the study group say the process of being involved in those groups on its own was a powerfully rewarding experience. It deepened their sense of understanding of what community action is about, and deepened their commitment to our mission. In addition to those states that have their local study groups, some state associations invite candidates to participate in their groups no matter what state where they live. Their groups meet in a conference call format that is done by the California State Association and the New York State Association. So if you're in a state that does not have a study group, both of those state associations accept candidates from whatever state they live in. So some helpful closing reminders. Candidacy lasts for 3 years, and again, about half do it in the first year. The program is designed to provide opportunities for persons who've come up through the ranks, as well as new in community action, which will become even more visible when you take a look at the candidate data form. There is help. All the forms you need are on the partnership website. You can get a pathway mentor, and there's a study guide for the examination. How to get started. How do you enroll? First of all, complete the enrollment form from the partnership website. To pay the enrollment fee, you can see options in a moment. There are 3 letters of reference expected, and you sign the community action. And here's a look at the enrollment fees. For the first candidate, it's $600 per agency or association. A second candidate, the fee changes to a lower fee. There's a reason behind this bundling of CCAP enrollments. It's because the Commission wants to encourage multiple candidacies in working groups, again, for study groups, again, to build CCAP in agencies. And it also is the case a number of state associations purchase bundles and then distribute them or sell them to or give them to as scholarship to potential CCAP candidates in the state. Again, that's all a part of the process of building that kind of network of CCAPs that's so important, we believe, for community action. That covers what we wanted to cover for today's webinar. We want to remind you of the webinars that are coming up again in the future in December, January, and April that will cover in more depth each of those assessment activities that we just skimmed over this afternoon. Okay? Hoping that we've covered all of your questions. I'm looking now in the panel. I don't see any, and we're very close to our ending time. But let me check with Cashin to see have I covered all the questions? Cashin, have you gotten any others that I haven't covered yet?
I believe you have covered them all, and just want to remind people that a lot of the value of being able to join us live is that you have such a great resource with Jim on the line. So if there are any last questions, go ahead and get those into the chat window, and I'm sure he'll be putting up his information for you momentarily if you come up with a question after the fact.
And specifically, if you do, you can see at the bottom of this screen the email address that comes right to my desk. That's ccapcontact@aol.com. You are welcome to use that email address at any time to ask any further questions about candidacy. And in fact, during the whole process that you are a candidate, that's the email address for communication about the CCAP process. To explain a little bit more about my role in assisting you, my responsibility for the Commission is twofold. One is to assist the Commission in the work they do as evaluators and for the program. And my second role is for you as CCAP candidates to assist you in the process and to facilitate the process of your candidacy. So once you become a candidate, I'm the person that you contact for the process along the way. And if you have any questions about the process before you enroll, I'm also the person to connect with. But as you enroll, and for the process of enrollment, that is through the partnership office. Enrollment in the CCAP program is managed at the partnership office. That's not managed through me. I manage the program as the CCAP administrator from my agency office in Florida, from where I'm speaking right now. But enrollment documents and enrollment payments are received at the partnership office in Washington, D.C. But back to the main point, that is the email address to get in touch with me for any questions you have about the CCAP program, anything from today's presentation or in the future on any of the other parts of the CCAP program. Okay. Thank you all very much for participating. I welcome any further questions and look forward to connecting with you again at our next webinar in December.
All right, Jim, it looks like we do have one last second question that made it under the wire, asking when does the 3-year window begin?
The 3-year window begins the day in which we enroll you. That is the day in which we receive your signed enrollment form, signed code of ethics, and payment. The date in which that's received at the partnership's office is the date of your enrollment. This is the best time right now to enroll, with the expectation and hope that you'll be able to get your candidate data form and executive skills portfolio in this January and February, so that your 3-year clock is turned on this January.
All right, and we also have a request if you could go back a slide or two to where you had the costs associated.
Yes, and this is the slide with the costs. Again, it's $600 for the first candidate, $500 for the second. If 3 persons enroll from your agency, the third candidate's free. You see that would be a cost per candidate of $367. If 8 candidates are enrolled by an agency, it's a rate of $238 per candidate. And again, I want to emphasize that it's not just an agency that can purchase those candidacies. A state association can bundle them and then distribute to agencies within the state. But in that instance, the state association has to function as the fiscal agent. Again, that's to encourage multiple candidacies. Okay, let's leave that slide up for a moment. Any further questions?
That's the last I've seen at this point, though. Encourage you to reach out to us or to the email address that Jim shared with us a moment ago, that's ccapcontact@aol.com. Hope you will consider joining in on the other webinars in the series, just to kind of help you along with the process, as well as give you yet another opportunity to ask any questions of Jim. So with that, we'll go ahead and finish up for today. Jim, are there any parting words that you want to leave everyone with this afternoon?
Just that I'm looking forward to congratulating you all becoming CCAPs and a partnership convention in August, in the next year, or soon after that. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your afternoon.